We continue now at the top of Daf Vav Amud Beis in Meseches Bava Basra. This is Bava Basra Daf 106b. On the previous summit, the Gemara said that Rapapa bought a piece of land from somebody, and Amar Lein, the seller, said to Rapapa, Hava Esrin Grive Mashchi, that it's 20 Grive, which means essentially that it's land that you can plant 20 saw on. So he told him the size of the land, Velo Havoy El Chameser, but it turned out that it was only 15. That's a discrepancy of more than 1/6. And this is the same case as the Mishnah. This is a situation where it was sold to Rapapa with specific landmarks and boundaries, so he knew the exact plot of land. It's just that he was told that the land was bigger than it actually was, and again, this discrepancy is significant. It's by more than 1/6. So also Lakame de Abaya, so he came before Abaya because he wanted to be able to pay less. He wanted to pay less money since the piece of land was smaller than he thought. Amar Le, so Abaya said to him, Savart v'kabilt, you understood exactly what you were getting into, you accepted the terms, and therefore you have to go through with the deal with the original price. The Gemara says that's not true, Vatanan, but didn't we learn in the Mishnah, Pachos mishasus higio, that if it's a discrepancy of less than 1/6, so then the sale goes through. But ad shasus yanake, but if it's by more than 1/6, so then you deduct from the price. So why is it that the sale goes through over here? And so the Gemara answers to that, Hani mili heichadelo kimle begava. That's only true if the person didn't know the piece of land well. Aval heichad de kimle begava, but in a situation where, like this case, where a papa understood exactly what piece of land he was buying, this was not a situation where he was misled in any way. So savar v'kabel. So in such a situation, he understood exactly what he was getting into, and therefore he's accepted the terms. That's why Abai said that the sale goes through. But the Gemara continues that Rapapa still asked, Vaha Esrin Amarli, but still he told me it was going to be 20 grive. What the Gemara means to say is, what Rapapa means to say is that by saying that number, even if I knew what that land, what the size was, I understood that there was going to be more land thrown in, some extra land, in order that it should add up to 20. And so the Gemara says, no, that doesn't prove anything either. Amar Le, Abai said back to Rapapa, Da Adifa Ka'esrin, it could be that he just meant that its quality was good, as if it was Esrin Grive, as if it was 20 Grive, as if it was that size, but he didn't mean it was actually exactly that size. You knew exactly what the size of the field was, and therefore, again, the sale goes through. And the Gemara continues, Tanya, we learned in a Brisa, Rabbi Yossi says, let's say brothers divide up property. Once the lottery, let's say they draw lots, and one of them gets a particular piece of land. Let's say, for example, there are 2 pieces of land, and so one of the brothers gets one of those pieces, so then kanu kulam, so then everything's been acquired. That is the end of the division. Let's say there are multiple brothers, so that brother who gets a particular piece of land, that part of the division is over, and now the rest of the property at this point in time, which still hasn't been divided, that belongs to the other brothers. In other words, as the lots are being drawn, that finalizes the division of the property. And the Gemara says, my time, and what's the reason that this is true? Why do we say that the Gorel finalizes the division? Amar Rebbe Elazar says, Ketchilas Eretz Yisrael. It's the same way when they originally divided Eretz Yisrael among the Shvatim. Matechila begorel, just like over there, they divided using a Gorel, they divided by drawing lots. Afkan begorel, so too over here, it's with a Gorel, and that again, it has a finality in terms of the division. But the Gemara says, Ima lahalan, but over there it's a little different. Bekalfi u'urim v'tumim, you were drawing lots from a box, and they were using the urim v'tumim. Afkan bekalfi v'urim v'tumim, so to over here you should say that it should only be considered a way of dividing if you're drawing lots in a box and using the urim v'tumim, which of course you're not doing over here. And the Gemara says, Amar Ravashi says, the reason why it's final over here, even though of course it's not exactly like the Gorel by Eretz Yisrael, is because Ba'ahu hanod the kotsaisi lahadadi, they get a certain benefit that they're listening to one another, that they're dividing the property. They want to be able to finalize the division of the property. So Gamri umakni lahadadi. So therefore, they finalize their kinyonim to one another because of that hana, and that's why when they divide the property in this fashion, that's considered to be a final division of the property. And the Gemara continues at the 2 dots. Itmar, it was stated the following: Machlokas Amoroim. Shnei achin shecholku. Let's say 2 brothers divide property. They think that they're the only 2 brothers. Ubalahen achmi medinas hayam. And then another brother shows up from overseas. They didn't realize there was a 3rd brother. So the question now is, they each have 50% of the property. Obviously, they're only entitled now to 1/3 of the property, and he gets 1/3 of the property. So how do we redivide the property? So that's a machlokas amoroim. Rav Amar Batla machlokas. Rav says that the original division is completely nullified. They have to start over again and redivide the property, and this time they're going to divide it into thirds. And the Gemara continues, Shmuel Amar, and Shmuel says, Mekamsin, that they have to lessen their property, meaning that the original division that they did actually stands, but each brother has to give up a little of his property, so that now again, each brother will have 1/3. And the Gemara continues, Amar le Rav Rav Nachman. Rav said to Rav Nachman, Le Rav de Amar Batla Machlokas. According to Rav, who says that the original division is nullified, so Al Mahadadina, so you see that we go back in terms of the judgment, we essentially go back and we say that it's not considered to be finalized, and we start over again. So Elameata, but according to that, Hani Beit Lasa de Kaimi Va'azul Beitre Minayu Upalug. Let's say you would have partners, and let's say there would be 3 partners, and 2 of them would decide that we're going to divide, and then it turns out that the third partner, he says he wasn't involved in the division, he wants them to start over the division. So Hachanami de Batla Machlokas, are you going to say in that situation that the division is completely nullified, you have to start over? Of course you're not going to say that, so you shouldn't say that in this case as well. Why are we starting over? And the Gemara says, Hachi Hashta, what kind of comparison are you making between these 2 cases? Hasam Nechisi Adaita de Beit Tlasa Meikara, over there, when 2 of the partners decide to divide without the third partner, without his involvement, but they all understand, everybody's aware of the fact that there are 3 partners, and they're dividing the property into thirds, and we say that that division is considered to be a final division. But Hachabit over here, when the 2 brothers divided, they weren't even aware of the third brother. Lo Nechisi Adaita de Beit Tlasa Meikara, they weren't dividing thinking that they were dividing into thirds, they were dividing thinking that they're dividing the property in half because they thought there were only 2 brothers. And so that's why Rav would say in this situation it's different, and we would say Batla Machlokas, we would say that the original division is entirely nullified. And the Gemara continues, Amarle Rav Papa li Abaye, Rav Papa said to Abaye l'Shmuel, what about according to Shmuel? The Amar Mekamsin, he says that they each take off a little bit of their portion and they give it to that third brother. L'Meimra de Kamdina, so that seems to say that the original division goes through, that it is considered to be a proper division. But V'haravu Shmuel da'amri tarvayu, but Rav and Shmuel, they both say, Kor b'shloshim ani mocher lach. Let's say a person says, I'm selling you a kor for 30, so yachol lachzor bo afilu b'so achrona. The deal is not finalized. You're able to retract even until the final saw if the final saw has not been taken, the deal is not over. He says, I'm selling you a kor, and if the buyer has not taken the entire kor, so then we say that the deal is not over. On the other hand, kor b'shloshim saw b'sela ani mocher lach. Let's say he says kor b'shloshim, but then he says saw b'sela. He says, I'm selling you every saw for a sela. So that's different, of course. Rishon kan, as we said above. Then we say with every saw that the buyer takes, that saw is acquired. It's finalized, meaning the deal is finalized on that particular saw. But the point over here is we're asking from the first part of the case. The first part of the case of Shmuel is kor of Rav and Shmuel is kor b'shloshim ani mocher lach. If he says, I'm selling you a kor for 30, so then we say it's not final until the entire thing has been taken. And so the same thing should be true over here. When you have a situation where the 2 brothers divided and then a third brother shows up, it should not be considered final because not everything has been divided properly. So why does Shmuel say kam dina? Why does Shmuel say in this particular case that the judgment is considered, the division is considered to be finalized? And we will continue with this discussion in the next video on Daf Kuf Zayin Amud Aleph.